The farmers are not told about that. The MSP has a history. MSP was introduced by British for a particular purpose.
Do people attach the tag of outsider to you?
Outsiders tag it has now become a bit of a joke. My connection to this city is very, very old. Biggest thing which is impacting Amritsar today is law and order. Extortion calls, women feel unsafe. People have stopped wearing jewelry because you have chain snatching incidents. There have been shootings. Secondly, drugs. Drugs are a massive issue both in urban side and in rural side.
But this is what the Aam Aadmi Party had promised. They had promised ki chitta hata denge. They promised rehabilitation, more jobs.
AAP has not been able to deliver. Anti-incumbency has set in so early.
Congress leader Sukhpal Khera, when he said people from outside Punjab are welcome to work and earn in the state. However, if they want to settle in Punjab permanently, they would need to comply with the new law.
That statement was very discouraging because people who have come from outside, the essential ingredients today which are making the economy run.
For you, is it a natural fit in the BJP?
I think your question should have been, is it a natural fit for you in politics?
Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching or listening to another edition of the ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. This episode is being filmed in the holy city of Amritsar. And with me is the former Indian ambassador to the U.S, Taranjit Singh Sandhu. Ambassador Sandhu is fighting his first ever election on a BJP ticket. Taking the Lok Sabha route to the parliament isn't an easy task, especially for a former bureaucrat. So let's ask Mr. Sandhu how he has taken to the rough and tumble of Punjab politics and also his family's long and historical ties to the city of Amritsar. Ambassador Sandhu, thank you so much for being part of the podcast. It feels very nice to talk to the Neta. I've always interviewed you, spoken to you when in your earlier avatar. So great to be with you today.
Thank you, Smita. Firstly, I apologize. My throat has taken a dip just this morning. So I'll try and do my best, but we go back a long way. I remember you in Washington, D.C. right from my first posting. I don't know how much of a Neta I've become, but it's in a sense a continuation.
It's a different kind of, it's a career move which is like deep dive into politics, because if you are going the Lok Sabha route, it's straight up public service, kind of continuity maybe, of working with people, but then this is also hardcore politics. So how have you taken to it?
So to be very honest with you, Smita, it's a continuation of public service, but in a different way. And the platform is, it has its own settling down and, as they say, its own challenges. But I have been very focused on Amritsar. And Amritsar has a whole lot of problems, which is something which also drew me in because my family has a very old tradition of public service here, especially in Amritsar and Majha region. And I was also inspired by Prime Minister, worked with him for 10 years, and also by External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar.
I'll go into your family's history with this city. It's such an illustrious family history that you have. I'll get into that in the second half of the podcast. But I just wanted to know that why did you decide, and at what point of time did you decide to join politics? Was it something that while working with Mr. Modi, or do you feel some linkage to the city and you wanting to do something for Amritsar? Why the move to politics?
So I would say to an extent both the reasons. I have an attachment to Amritsar. It's my home city, like every other public servant. Or I often give the example of a serviceman, an ex-army, who does 35 years outside and comes back home. So every time in a year when you get leave, you do come back. So I have been coming regularly every year to Amritsar, depending upon how much time one has then. But I wouldn't say that it was all very planned, but Yes, the situation in Amritsar pushed me a little more to come and do public service. Actually, in my understanding, Amritsar requires that connect, and I think there's a lot that can be done, and I can contribute to it.
So, do people attach the tag of outsider to you? It would be unfair to do that because even though you've been out of the country, your family's ties with this city go back over 100 years. So, I want to know about this outsider tag, and I want to know about, tell me the story about your grandfather and his connection with this city.
So, outsiders tag it has now become a bit of a joke. Since they didn't get anything serious which they could have thrown at me, so, the political opponent started fueling this outsider tag. As you have said, my connection to this city is very, very old. Actually, both my father and my mother's side both belong to Amritsar. And we call this the Majha region. My grandfather, very, very interesting history. He was a known freedom fighter. He was also the leading light of what was then Sikh Gurdwara reform movement, because the Gurdwaras were under the control of the British. And British realized that keep the Gurdwaras under their control, so Sikh mobilization can be taken control of. And
Time frame that we are talking about?
we are talking of early
19th century.
Yes. So he was actually, in the period from 1910 to when he died. Actually, even earlier than 1910, he was the leading light, and he died in 1926 in Lahore jail. But let me give you a bit of description about him. He was, my great-grandfather was in the British Army, in a pretty senior position. So
His name was?
Deva Singh Samundri.
Ji.
And at that time, when people retired from the British Army, they gave them land in what was called the Bar in Pakistan area. And Samundri was the area where we got our land.
So Samundri is now in Pakistan.
That's correct. It's in Lailpur district. I've never been, but these are the stories I have.
But your father was in Taran, right?
No, my father...
Your grandfather?
No, our original village is Sarihali.
Okay.
So from there, because the land was allotted to us by the British, and pretty handsome land, so we moved to Samundri. So our ancestral village is still in the Taran district,
Okay.
but it was at that time whole of Amritsar.
Okay.
Sarihali is a very big village there. And interestingly, I wanted to mention to you there, so my grandfather, my great-grandfather pushed him into British Army, because you were a kid
Correct.
of this thing. And
it's a tradition, right, in Sikh families to be in the
Interestingly,
forge.
those days, Sikhs were seen as collaborators with the British, because of a whole lot of this concept of martial race, and the British drew a certain martial races, gave them preferences in the British Army.
Okay.
So that way, but my grandfather left within 2.5 years and came and joined the reform movement. Now, one of the important fallouts of the Gurdwara reform movement and its association with the independence struggle that time was that actually two significances. One, that Sikhs joined the mainstream freedom struggle. And then when you later read about the numbers who died, the Sikhs have overwhelming numbers in those. So that transformation into a leading force for India's independence happened around that time. And he was instrumental in that. And Second part, which was very interesting and especially about him, in 1917, he established two schools in Sarihali. One of them was a women's school. And we talk about women empowerment. So he had at that time done. And two schools he opened in Samundri. And the famous master Tara Singh got his name master because my grandfather got him to head those schools in Samundri. So another part which was very interesting was actually the non-violence aspect of our freedom struggle was actually first practiced in Punjab in all those morchas which he led. So one of them is very famous, well known, Guru Ka Bagh. If you see the Gandhi movie, you will see a clip of that. My grandfather led that. It's very near Amritsar.
Okay.
So his association with this region was very deep. Okay. And incidentally, he was only perhaps 5th or 6th class pass. But still he established those educational things. And my father...
But no, before you come to your father, there's the SGPC connection too.
Yeah.
So that part.
Exactly. So, Gurdwaras were under the control of the British. So he led that reform movement struggle, which was actually for liberation of the Gurdwaras from the British. And the SGPC was a product of that.
So the Gurdwaras were under the control of Mahants,
yes,
who were reporting to the British.
Who were the agents of the British.
Right.
And
there was malpractice.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
right.
The Mahants were actually making money and reporting to the British everything and sabotaging any kind of Sikh unity or Sikh participation in independence movement. This reform movement, and in fact, the Akali, SGPC was first formed by them informally in order to, each Gurdwara, they led an agitation. So there are lots of morchas, Jaito, Nabha. Even actually, he led a movement against one of the, the Central Secretariat famous Gurdwara. That wall, the British were trying to take over the land, and they had gone to Delhi and led the.
So they freed the Gurdwaras.
Yes,
from
the British, the Mahants, and then the next step was forming their own organization, meaning a democratic organization to run the Gurdwaras. And SGPC was a product of that.
Okay.
Now, let me explain a bit further to you. So they were arrested, a whole lot of Akalis. A number of times he went to jail, but they were arrested around, I think, 1922, 23. And from Amritsar, they were taken to Lahore jail. I believe there were about 45 senior leaders, and ultimately British started to, they had their own style to bribe people back and
divide and rule.
Divide and rule. So they got only 11 were left. Rest all apologized. They wrote a letter to this thing. So my grandfather led that group of 11.
Who didn't apologize.
Yes, and that included Tara Singh also. In 1926, he died in Lahore jail. He was in solitary confinement. And I mean, those days, Lahore jail was one of the strongest. Even today, it's a terrible one. And so he was only about 43 years of age. And one fine morning, the British said he had died of heart attack. Master Tara Singh has always suspected that. But that revolutionized the movement, and the British were forced to release the other 10 unconditionally. And immediately they declared the SGPC elections, the first SGPC elections. And this group of 10 came out and swept those elections in the name of Sardar Teja Singh Samundri. So there's a very famous historic photograph which has, that photo has him in the central chair. His photograph is put there, and Master Tara Singh and other leaders are sitting there. So subsequently, when SGPC constructed the building, its headquarters, and there was some discussion, must have been in there, that how to honor Siddharth Teja Singh Samundri's memory, and they named that building. It's actually in the Golden Temple complex.
Yes.
And till today, there's not a single building which is named after a non-guru except him. So the impact of his sacrifice was felt very deeply.
Does this, when you go there, when you go into that hall, does it weigh on you that there's this history that my family name carries, and is there a sense of responsibility that comes with that?
Absolutely. Huge responsibility, and that's why I'm very focused on delivering to Amritsar. Interestingly, my father.
Yeah, the contribution of both your parents.
So my father studied in the same school which my grandfather established in Sarihali. He was a product of that. Then he became an agriculture scientist, went on to serve in the Punjab Agriculture University when it opened. He also went to United States, but 4-5 of very prominent people persuaded him to take over Khalsa College.
Both your parents went and studied in the U.S., right?
Yeah. I'll come to my mother also, and I'm very proud of her legacy. So my father became the principal of Khalsa College, Amritsar, which is a very, very famous, iconic college here. So the college was not doing well. And then my father became quite a legendary principal. Lots of people remember him. And I think it was in 1969 that the government decided to open Guru Nanak Dev University. It was Guru Nanak Dev Ji's centenary at that time. And my father became the founder vice chancellor of Guru Nanak Dev University. So he has made a lot of contribution in education in this border area. And people very fondly remember, even today they tell me that the degrees which were issued were signed by him. I mean, it's a way of remembering. Now, my mother, she came from the rural Amritsar belt. And even today...
if I may interrupt, just last year we did a couple of podcasts in Amritsar, and I met with a number of people who are professors who speak very highly of your family, and they told me about the contribution of your parents. They teach in the university. So go ahead, yes.
So my mother, she studied from rural school, continued studying. She used to later, in a very light-hearted way, tell me that her side of the family used to wait they were very liberal to the extent that they were allowing her to study, but every year they would wait. My mamas would wait that perhaps this year she will fail and then they can stop. But she was a very determined woman. Interestingly, in 1956, she went to Ohio State University and in 2 years completed her doctorate. Even today, it's impossible. People take 4 to 5 years. And after completing her doctorate, she decided to come back. Obviously, my father had also decided to be back. She came back and taught in Government College for Women as a lecturer, and later became a principal.
Little did she know then that her son would become the Indian ambassador to the U.S. one day, right? When both of them studied in the U.S.
Yeah, unfortunately...
She didn't know about that.
Unfortunately, both of them died. I did join the Foreign Service.
Why?
My mother was very inspiring on both of them, wanted me to join the civil service. I did study initial years in Amritsar.
But why did you choose to do your higher education in Delhi instead of in Amritsar with, both your parents being teachers?
So if you recall in the 80s, my father retired in 1979. 69 to 79, he was the vice chancellor. And after that,
the tumultuous period.
There was too much of violence, disruptions. So Delhi gave me a good place for education. And I think thanks to that, I was later able to join the civil service.
if I was to come back, fast forward, I'll talk about your years as a diplomat later, but let me come back to hardcore politics. This city, it has a kind of a jinx for the BJP with Mr. Jaitley having lost, Mr. Hardeep Puri having lost. Did that affect you at all when the BJP asked you to fight from here?
Well, I didn't think the second time because, I mean, for me, I was very deeply connected with Amritsar. I do feel that if you actually look at the situation in Amritsar, I mean, initially, if you ask the people in the earlier generation, Amritsar was one of the top 10 cities of India of that time. And you know, the Amritsar Medical College, again, they were legendary people here. The first 6 directors of PGI actually came out of Amritsar.
PGI Chandigarh, you mean?
Chandigarh, absolutely. And even today, you know, in the United States, many of the successful doctors
are from Amritsar. Okay, so there were no second thoughts when you were asked to fight?
No, I mean, I did not solicit, but when it was suggested,
it was a natural fit.
Well, this time will tell whether I am a natural fit or not. But I think the problems in Amritsar are very deep. And this aspect I have come across many times. People do mention about, you know, that in earlier times we should have picked up a good representative here. You know, we have had, the last representative has had 2 terms, and I don't want to indulge in any mudslinging, but the condition of the city, the problems which are here are so essential that to that extent it's quite embarrassing. You know, things like
what are the main things that I can see and what is reported? One is the issue of migration, the brain drain that is happening, and then there are the civic issues like garbage and things, and then there is what is affecting many places in Punjab, with this the drug issue.
So, Smita, these are very essential issues. These should have been resolved at least 10 years earlier. So I'll list out very important. You know, the biggest thing which is impacting Amritsar today is law and order. Actually, the different parts of the population, including extortion calls, women feel unsafe. Actually, you know, Amritsar is a very foodie town.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that it's become like that.
People love to go out, eat, but after 8, families don't think of going out, particularly women. And people have stopped wearing jewelry because you have chain snatching incidents. And in fact, the time I have been here, there have been shootings in good colonies, and you can also be caught up in cross firing. So law and order is a major issue. Secondly, drugs. Drugs are a massive issue both in urban side and in rural side. I met women in colonies who say they lost almost 8 members of family. In fact, even yesterday when I was campaigning, after I spoke and I gave my vision, one of the women came up to me. She said that, sir, forget all these things. Just do the drugs part. That'll be a big favor. Because, as I say, people have started wearing kala chashmas here. I mean, they are just oblivious to the fact that drugs have multiplied. And I have presented a program which is just not limited to only law and order, but what can be done for rehabilitation and also jobs. So drugs is one issue. You have mentioned about sewerage cleanliness. Yes. Now, Amritsar, which had a very tradition of healthy water, actually is one of the few cities where sewerage and water are mixing. So what people may be consuming
is toxic.
Is toxic. So therefore, today, with technology, and I often say that, if Indore in 6 years could transform itself, then why not Amritsar? And people are responding. To add to that, I mean, some more issues will be, you know, the productivity, the unemployment,
Right.
Those are.
How will you
going down.
handle the unemployment issue? Because you can, if you drive past any of the colonies here in Amritsar, and I've done that several times, you can see so many homes, palatial homes, khali padi hui hai. And then you see that is, people tell you that is gali mein सिर्फ हम बुजुर्ग रहते हैं, बच्चे तो सारे चले गए, उनके बच्चे भी चले गए. You feel terrible that, you know, there's probably one young couple looking after about 10 homes where everybody has left. It's quite kind of, you know, sad to think that the young in this city feel so hopeless that we won't get jobs, we have no future, and emigrating. There is a part of the Punjabi culture which is always thought of greener pastures, but now it's become very complex in Amritsar, I feel.
So, there are 2 or 3 ways I can directly mention to you how this can be resolved. But, you know, this greener pastures is not really, unfortunately, people think they are greener pastures. But there are cases, most of the cases where people go through, you know, not the legal way. And when they go to United States, they end up doing jobs which they won't do here. And they hide it from the parents. It adds to the worry of number of families here, and that I've come across. But to answer your main question, how would one resolve this? I think first and foremost is education. You know, like rest of Bharat, where we are having the new education policy, it's remained quite untouched in Amritsar. We need to get that here, meaning education not for degrees, just education for degrees with skills. With skills. So, like a lot of foreign universities, and I know from the United States, they are establishing collaborations with their Indian counterparts, and thereby, you know, putting up joint degrees in campuses here. Now, that kind of thing, if it comes into Amritsar, will be very, very useful, because, you know, people are spending up to 35, 40 lakhs. Now, very recently, I had got about 2 weeks ago a call from the parents. You know, their young son died in California, and they didn't have money to bring the body back. I was able to take help of the embassy and the consulate and get the body back. They were very, very gratified. The only thing I requested to them, and incidentally, this kid had taken a loan of 40 lakhs. So you can imagine how distressing it is. Yes. So I told the parents to share this with others, so that this bhed chal of going abroad can be controlled. The second way, if I can just quickly complete on that, would be to encourage startups. You know, Amritsar has a very low rate of startups.
Why? Have the governments not encouraged startups? What is the...
Because the central schemes have not touched here. I think the state government and the member of parliament, it's just not appealed to him. He doesn't understand the startup culture.
So before that, there was the Congress government and then the Aam Aadmi Party government in this state. And both have not fostered a startup economy, a startup culture in this city. Do you feel that?
Absolutely. So if you see countrywide, you know, 5 years ago, there were not too many startups. But today, there are 150,000 startups. And Prime Minister Modi keeps pushing the startup this thing. Because, interestingly, it will be even more relevant in Amritsar, because here people love working for themselves. So you can have small to big startups. And incidentally, interestingly, you know, just about 3 weeks back, a group of Punjabi diaspora, Punjabi Indian diaspora in the United States, many of them belonging to Amritsar, and doctors, they got together and raised $100 million for Vikshit Amritsar. And in that, the major chunk is for startups. Okay. And they are saying startups across the areas, you know, both in industry, in agriculture. And I'll give you examples of so many startups we can, you know, look, tourism. This city receives about 1.5 lakh visitors every day. You know, they come for darshan, Darbar Sahib, Durgyana Mandir. We also have Ram Tirath. We have Wagah border, Wagah Atari border. We also have Jallianwala
Jallianwala,
Bagh.
yeah.
We have Ranjit Singh's palaces. Actually, if you see Khalsa College building also,
Yeah.
marvelous. So, to convert those visitors into tourists, and it's not an impossible task, but we can have the young getting together and making a startup on tourism. I can get them recognition, but they can organize things like, organize a car, organize a reception at Rajasansi. One of them can take a 7-day training and become a kind of a tourist guide, take them around, do the hotel booking.
Yeah.
So 2 or 3 days, that's how you make them into tourists and leave them back. And sitting at home, you will start earning about, there's so much of diaspora which would pay them 40,000-50,000 bucks in order to make all this easy.
But then you've also promised a VFS center and an American consulate.
No, so let me be clear. Yes, VFS, I've spoken to them. There's a lot of difficult for people from Amritsar. They have to go all the way to Delhi. To do all this. And Delhi, at least 2-3 days there.
Yeah.
So VFS has immediately promised after elections that they will establish a center there. In addition, actually VFS are very strong on hospitality training too. Along with Taj, they have promised that they will set up a training center here, which will again help the youth. Now, on the American consulate, one was aware that they have permission for 2 consulates, so I've raised it with Dr. Jaishankar, and I also raised it with Eric Garcetti.
And are they positive?
They are positive. There's a process for this.
It matters a lot because Tejasvi Surya did that in Bangalore, if you remember. And everybody was like, it makes life so much easier. Otherwise, how many Indians are there, who are in Bangalore, who need all those facilities. They have to go to Chennai to get the stamping of the passports. And if there's an American consulate out here, that would be really helpful to people.
And not a single politician here, including the sitting MP. He was part of the External Affairs Committee. Not once did they think that they should push for a consulate in Amritsar.
There were no proposals, is it?
Nothing on record we have had.
Oh, okay. You spoke about how you will help with the startup economy and generate. What about the rural areas, sir? The claptrap of poverty, because it's still agriculture based and there aren't agri industries. So that claptrap of poverty, how will rural Amritsar benefit from any programs and policies that you want to pursue?
No, absolutely very apt question, and the rural belt is suffering big time. So my thinking involves increasing incomes in the rural areas. Very, very important. So there are 3 straightways which I have proposed, and I'm open to suggestions. Anybody can give a constructive input. So firstly, with the product. The product needs to have value addition. Now what I mean is, whatever you grow, for example, even if you grow rice, rice protein today has much more value. So we do need to establish agro-based industry here. There is none.
Which is so strange when it's an agriculture-based state where I think 65% or something of the population is dependent on just agriculture and its income. Nobody thought about that?
So another linked area I want to draw in, you hear so much about MSP and there's so much of controversy on that and things. Actually, people, understandably, not everybody is well aware. The farmers are not told about that. The MSP has a history. MSP was introduced by British for a particular purpose. And I don't want to talk about all India and Punjab. I just want to focus on Amritsar and tell you. Now, the wheat and rice, the wheat was introduced here after 1965. And rice was introduced in 1970s. So it's not that it's before independence, everything.
Yeah, the Green Revolution linked.
The reason for people taking to those crops was that they generated incomes. That is the principle. So it's not MSP for MSP's sake. So MSP is a much more complicated this thing. But even if you see the MSP, there is existing MSP right now for Punjab and for Amritsar. And the rates, if you compare it, the percentage increases. Even in the last year, it's much, much more than any time in the Congress era. Now, what I'm talking about is the second and the third part. The second part, which will be very interesting for you, lot of vegetables and fruits are already grown in Amritsar. Things like peas, matars.
Diversification of the crop, you mean, pura. Not just paddy and wheat.
Yeah, I would not use the term diversification because people will get excited. But actually it is happening. So
cash crops and things.
But they are not being connected to good markets.
Markets, okay.
Now that's the issue. So you have, I'll give you one example, matars, and peas we hear. So they are grown in big quantities in Amritsar. The selling price of matars in Amritsar today is rupees 10. In Dubai, it is rupees 350. And in United Kingdom, is 1,350.
So how will you do the linkage if export?
I'll come on that. So first and foremost, the farmers need these to be exported. Now, just few days back, and I'm only talking about UAE, Saudi Arabia, Dubai. And you know that there is this corridor which is coming up, India, Middle East, Europe. Now, Prime Minister was in UAE and he signed an agreement with UAE. There's a lot of demand for our vegetables and fruits. And interestingly, just 2 days back, the famous Lulu Group, they announced that they are going to set up a procurement center in Amritsar. And whole lot of this. So we have, as I told you, peas, we have gobi, we have amruds, you name a vegetable, the simple mirchi, 24 months. All the 12 months. Meaning that Amritsar has a unique blessing where tomatoes, any of this we can.
Yeah, it's not just the mitti, it's the mausam also. It's the combination of mitti and mausam that this land is blessed with.
And on top of it, we have an international airport at Rajasthansi. The cargo facility, it's only 20% used. Not a single cargo flight out. So I am talking of connectivity in the cargo side. Look, if there is business, obviously they will take it. And Lulu, once they got the initial bid, understanding, they spoke to me. They immediately said that we will like to open a procurement center. They have given their expression very clearly. And soon they will send a delegation here to talk to both the farmers and the industry. This will help the industry too. And incidentally, you will again be surprised. There's not a single matar processing plant here. We also grow what is nashpati. It's actually called patharnak. It's stone pears. Now this is an amazing fruit. It's a very green fruit because in the last 2 months, no chemicals are added in this. So it's a green fruit. It's very
organic.
Very rich in iron, very juicy.
Okay.
Now we can export it also to Saudi Arabia and UAE.
Okay.
And you can imagine. And in addition, even the one which falls, supposing crop which falls because of whatever reason, you can convert it into malba. And you can use it in sauces, you can use it in jams. Now there's not a single patharnak processing plant in Amritsar. Now that is clearing. The existing system should have raised it. And I am raising it. And that's why I feel that and this is not difficult to mature because the cargo facility is fully operational and available. The airport authority has constructed it. All we require is a flight. And that can be done the moment we have, I know that FedEx will be very happy to start.
So, You have these ideas for rural Amritsar as well as for urban Amritsar. Now, the issue also is that even if you win and even if the BJP wins in this state, the state government is still an Aam Aadmi Party government. Do you see them cooperating with you to fructify all these programs? Because it's invariably state versus center when it comes to even issues which will help the population of the state.
No, but if we go out and explain to the public that this is what you are losing, because I have been meeting the farmers, and when I talk to them on these issues, I can see a response, including in the border areas. So I've been saying that even for the start, just start with 30% of your crops. See if it's profitable. And I'm 100% it's going to be profitable. So I think the export side would come more under the Commerce Ministry. And look, I am going to, and there's also private sector initiative. So we are not totally dependent on the government side. Now, if they don't do it, then obviously the exposure is on them. And I'm going to go ahead and get it done.
So in one of your interviews, you mentioned, and I'm quoting, people realize that they have been taken for a long ride for the last 10 years. Is this one of the reasons when you say 10 years, are you saying because of the Aam Aadmi Party government and then before that the Congress, that they trusted Congress for years, they trusted the Shiromani Akali Dal before that, they trust the Aam Aadmi Party now, but they've not got what they want from from whichever party they have elected? What can they expect out of what Mr. Modi is promising and what you are promising?
So one of the reasons I'm also mentioning 10 years is that Prime Minister Modi has almost completed 10 years. And you have seen the transformation that even in the foreign policy, it's development oriented. Yes, the prestige of India has gone up. India has done a very successful G20. Prime Minister is consulted on major issues by both President Biden and President Putin and others. But the development orientation of the foreign policy is also very clear. And I know from example of the U.S., we can obviously speak about it. I know that in the last few years, that relationship has turned into a partnership, and a number of big U.S. companies have come into India and started investing. It will create jobs for the youth. That's why I mean this. So when I say 10 years, that this part, his initiatives have largely gone untouched. And many of his schemes, which the state governments use, they put their own photographs. And even those, so people are very conscious. If you go around the city, even OBCs and SC Bhaichara, they are aware that there are schemes of Prime Minister Modi which have not reached them. And interestingly, all the roads they talk of, all that money has come from the central kitty. So that's why I'm saying that it's important that there's a good bridge between Amritsar, Delhi, and internationally too, because we do require foreign markets and investments into Amritsar.
Are the people of Amritsar satisfied with the administration that is being provided by the Aam Aadmi Party?
The anti-incumbency has set in so quickly against the AAP because they have actually, what all they promised, they have been far from people. I narrated to you so many issues. Drugs, they said within 1 month, we will shut all this. They have done nothing. Even on the agriculture side, I have not seen any initiative. The Haryana government, 2 months ago, they signed an agreement with JICA, the Japanese, for providing assistance in horticulture and diversification, all that. Punjab has never even spoken about it. Look, this is the call of our. If I can give you examples of how much is the price differentiation, and also look at the water table, look at the environment. People in my area are getting impacted by it.
So what is the Chief Minister doing then?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't like to comment on what he's doing. I mean, I think it's pretty well.
But when people come to you from your constituency, do they say that they are dissatisfied?
Oh yes, yes, they are. They are very open about the situation. They are interested in my solutions because I'm not just talking in the air. On many of these issues, I have specific plans. Like, even on the drugs, when we talk, I will come to specific areas where we can get done things in rehabilitation. For example, in rehabilitation, medicines and appropriate, correct medicines are very important. They give a tablet here, and most of it in the black.
Yeah. But the abuse of prescription drugs is a major issue in Punjab.
So there are good medicines which should be brought in here. And on top of it, finally, you also need to create jobs here because the youth, just like India, almost 50% of the population in Amritsar is very young, 26 years and below. We need to provide them alternatives here.
But this is what the Aam Aadmi Party had promised when they were campaigning against Captain Amrinder Singh's government. They had promised ki chitta hata denge. They promised rehabilitation, more jobs. And a chief minister who was extremely popular got elected. That's what they keep saying कि chief minister जो हैं वो बहुत popular हैं. Whereas the prime minister just yesterday, day before yesterday, said कि ये कागजी chief minister हैं. So popularity and delivery on the job are two different things. Is he delivering or is he concentrating on his popularity?
Well, obviously the AAP has not been able to deliver, and I think the results will reflect that. I mean, it's one thing to say that we will sweep 13-0, but the reality will certainly dawn on them, and that anti-incumbency has set in so early. So delivery on any of these, I mean, I raised the issue of law and order, there's no delivery. Raised the issue of drugs, no delivery. I raised the issue of city cleanliness, no delivery. Just go around and see, the kind of sewerage that is going around.
So you've been ambassador in the U.S. You've seen the role of diaspora, the Sikh diaspora also, and their contribution to society in the U.S., in North America. But how do you react to the Congress leader Sukhpal Khera Row when he said people from outside Punjab are welcome to work and earn in the state. However, if they want to settle in Punjab permanently, they will need to comply with the new law that his party wants to bring. How do you see this?
I think per se that statement was very discouraging because we must keep in mind that in the current situation, a lot of people who have come from outside, in that sense, are actually the essential ingredients today which are making the economy run. And to make such a loose statement is uncalled for. There are people from different states, there are people from Bihar here, there are people from UP here, there are people from Uttarakhand, Himachal, even from Odisha. So Punjab traditionally has always had a very good bhaichara. And there was an attempt by Congress earlier also to push this in. So I would again see it's stirring the pot and just for political.
These kind of divisive statements, are they just poll related you feel, or is there a deep seated feeling that yes, like we created a Sikh Suba, like that we should be more restrictive about the Punjabi Suba?
No, they are certainly poll related. Well, they are mischievous statements. The end result, it's always not in your control. So, you can end up injecting something, perhaps thinking you will get a political benefit, and you can end up creating a situation which can be terrible.
So even though you have such deep links with the SGPC, with Sikh politics, your campaigning has not been Gurdwara politics. It's not linked to religion all that much. Even though the Prime Minister said and talked about the contribution of your family, you've tried to be development oriented in your campaigning. But those things do come up. Like in an interview to one of the newspapers, one of our web portals, Sukhbir Singh Badal, he questioned Amritpal's debut in politics and alleged that he's a BJP plant. Now you tell me, if these kind of things are coming up, do you see in the next few days it getting stirred all the more?
So, look, efforts are always made, and they will be made even in Amritsar. But to answer your question, look, we have to be respectful of everybody's religious sentiments, which Indian polity is. It's naturally, I mean, our constitution has all those provisions. But what is important is that we should not hide behind these and just totally forget the welfare of people. It is the responsibility of all the elected leaders to ensure. Now, if Amritsar is in this spiral of low income generation, low employment, low productivity, people are ultimately suffering. And who has to respond to that? It should be people. And that's why there is, I think, a kind of a quiet wave which is building, that we must have, this is a parliament election, and we must have somebody educated who understands these issues and is not stirring this thing. Look, religion is the personal business of everyone, and we should give space to everyone. I mean, does not mean that I am any less believer in God if I'm not making a political use of it. But I'm talking about the issues which are daily needs of the people. As I told you, when I go around, in fact, just take a round of the city and just talk to people, talk to women. They will tell you law and order, drugs, sewerage.
Yeah.
These are things which are impacting their daily lives.
So we did 4 or 5 podcasts in this city last year, and it was shocking because I never thought that the situation was that terrible. For our viewers and listeners, if you just rewind to May last year, you will have a series of these podcasts which we did from Amritsar, especially women of Amritsar, entrepreneurs from Amritsar. Please do revisit those podcasts to understand the issues for which Ambassador Sandhu is coming up with policies and programs on how to tackle with it. So if I was to come back to the real politics as we conclude, I just wanted to ask you about the divorce, or should I say the temporary separation between the BJP and the Akali Dal this election. Is it
I don't know if
complicated bolo kya bolo relationship status?
Look, politics is politics. So I don't think I am that well aware to really comment on that. What I will say is
now this is like talking to Ambassador Sandhu now, the diplomat.
Look, I was quite clear. We have and especially me, broadly BJP has put out what you have seen is their vision document, is the vision document, and that is very futuristic. If you look at it, it's very development oriented. And I have worked on that for Amritsar. And my focus is clearly on Amritsar. I think this, as you have said, that it's a huge challenge. Perhaps yes, but challenges provide opportunities. And my sense is that Amritsar results will surprise everyone. Maybe they'll surprise Sukhbir too.
I'd like to know that. I mean, your friendship with Sukhbir goes back many, many years. How does that work, sir? That, you've known each other since 30 years or more? 40 years?
No, we were in school together.
In school together. So there. So you've known each other, you've been friends, family friends, but then politics then takes separate turns. How does it work?
So, we'll see how it works. It should work well. Look, personal relations are personal relations. And, when I was appointed ambassador, Captain Amrinder Singh, who was the Congress Chief Minister, Sukhbir, who was the SAD Chief at that time, and Bhagwant Mann, who was a Member of Parliament from AP, all three tweeted and spoke to me and were very happy. Yeah. I mean, it's an ideal. I hope in Amritsar I can create that kind of working together for the city. But to be honest, I think ever since I filed my nomination, I have not spoken to Sukhbir. I think the results will give a very clear indication, and we'll take it after that how it comes. But on the issues, I mean, I have a very clear view. I feel the existing political parties have ignored Amritsar. There's a very strong feeling in Amritsar that AIIMS and Central University were taken away. And, that was taken away to Bathinda. And it's a very legitimate issue. Even, you may find this interesting. There's a lot of excitement here when I tell them that we'll bring IPL back to Amritsar in 2027, when Amritsar will complete 450 years. Incidentally, Bishan Singh Bedi, Madan Lal are products of Amritsar, and so is Kiran Peshawariya and Anu Peshawariya. Okay. That is the Kiran Bedi, the tennis players. Yeah. So Amritsar has had a tradition of sports, and Gandhi Ground used to have international matches. So when I say this, people get very excited, and I hope we can bring Amritsar back to its glory. I'm confident that I will be that bridge to help it happen.
So this splintering of votes, you don't see that happening because it's so complicated with the BJP on one side, the SAD on one side, the Congress on the other side, AAP on the other side. It's a four-cornered contest. And then there is the BSP element also which comes in. So it's almost like Maharashtra now, which it's difficult to predict किस तरफ जाने वाला है यहाँ पे.
So look, I am not a great politician to that.
You sound so much like Dr. J now.
No, but let me say this, that yes, look, it's certainly complicated, but my sense is this time there's a undercurrent for development, and BJP will surprise.
Is Modi a factor in Amritsar?
Oh yes, certainly, and I often speak about what he has done for the development of India, what he has done for bringing in investments into India, creation of jobs, and Amritsar has completely missed that. So he's definitely a factor, and I think that aspect is something important. In fact, I'm going to be pushing for a special package for Amritsar, and I feel confident that Prime Minister, with his affection for this city, it's quite visible the way he spoke yesterday. And also, if you see, in fact, I think it was your interview, and you pointed out, when I look back at that interview, there was Darbar Sahib photograph there.
Yeah. And also when he went to Patna Sahib recently, when he was at the langar, he was serving, and then it again came up in TV interviews. And in fact, when I first covered the PM visit to New York, you were there, sir. Even there, the Sikh diaspora, every time he goes to the U.S., the Sikh diaspora comes in large numbers to meet with him, and he has a connect with them.
You will recall the famous first 2014 visit in New York. He met a very interesting ray of Sikh diaspora. The meeting was scheduled only for half an hour and went on for almost 1.5 hours, 2 hours.
Yeah, and I just wanted to ask you about it, that this time, do you feel that when you saw Prime Minister in Amritsar, do you feel that there's a connect he has with the Sikh community?
Oh, I think he has been very forthcoming, and he's very keen. In fact, yesterday he spoke very clearly about bringing development to Punjab. He has worked here earlier in his younger days, so he knows Punjab very well, and anybody can see, and I can see in Amritsar very clearly.
For you, is it a natural fit in the BJP?
Well, I think your question should have been, is it a natural fit for you in politics? It's a bit too early. I have worked 10 years with Prime Minister Modi, and I am very comfortable. I know that his focus is so clear, and he wants to get things done. And my job in the United States was made much simpler because having him and Dr. Jaishankar, both were focused and both wanted things done and delivered. And I was happy, God's grace.
Your farewell speeches before you left, there was, the India-U.S. relations ke upar itna sara we got to know. It was like, 10 years ka focus on what all was achieved when you were there as ambassador, and before that, the programs that you worked on, the Predators and the G engines and all those things that you have worked on behind the scenes, which people don't know. They only see the signatures that happen. Just before we conclude, thoda sa agar aap hame bataएं that what goes behind those mega deals that happen.
So I think first and foremost, we must give credit to the Prime Minister for being very decisive. You know, the American business looks at decisiveness, and decisiveness is very important. And these are one side of it, but whole lot of investments have come into India. You know, semiconductors. Semiconductors is a very critical. The biggest factory of semiconductors is being set up in Gujarat. Solar energy, you know, Chennai, IBM, Google, Microsoft, GE. They are all coming and investing in India. Now, these all will create whole lot of job opportunities for our youth. It's also that they will be trained, and trained manpower is very, very essential. You know, even in semiconductors, you need millions of trained workforce. And that's a great opportunity for India. Because India is very young. It's 26 years and below 50% of the population. And that's why Prime Minister Modi's focus on skill development, new education policy, that's an important ingredient.
So when you're working in all these and you have all these industrialists who want to invest in India, American industrialists, did they get it influenced by the American media, which was reporting, oh, India is going sliding, democracy sliding, we have autocracy in India, better not to come here, the economy is going to tank under Modi. ये सब जो headlines हम पढ़ते हैं, the editorials, doesn't the American, it doesn't impact on the American investor?
Look, to an extent, it is driven to impact, but American business is also smart. And Prime Minister has been meeting all of them. And whenever they interact with him, if you see their comments afterwards, and you see the results too, the kind of investments that have come in. So, you know, talk of anyone, I mean, they are fascinated because he is very result focused, and what all they tell him, they require this assistance, you know, the system gets galvanized. And he's been also outside the box when it comes. So we all were also influenced in becoming that. Look, to be honest, there'll always be challenges because there are groups which are fed by different ideologies, and I would say with different interests. So, but on the whole, I think the results are clear. The investments are only increasing, and you know, Americans only put their money where they see there's a future.
Right. On that note, I would like to conclude because I know you have a campaign schedule, the last lap before polling day. So wishing you all the best, sir, and hope you get your voice back for the speeches that you need to deliver today. All the best for it.
Thank you very much, Smita. And I hope next time when we speak, my voice will be back in action.
Absolutely. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching or listening to this edition of the ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. Do like or subscribe on whichever channel you have seen this or heard this. Namaste. Jai Hind. Click here to watch the previous episodes.